All right, so for this game, it looks like we have what is essentially a sequencing setup with an out component. So there's going to be these 7 people, but only 5 of them are going to be interviewed. So we can set it up as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then there would be an additional 2 people who are out. And if you do have a defined set of outs, it's always a good idea to kind of have a separate space for it, because it is worth recognizing that only 2 will be out. There's a certain limitation there that you want to be able to see. Now, the elements themselves happen to be GILN, and then we have OR and T. And from there, let's take a look at the rules. So the first rule says that L has to go second or third, so that's nice to know. I guess we can also leave a reminder here that L is going to be in one of these 2 positions. Next, we're told that N or T has to go last, so one of these 2 is going to be 5th, and we can reserve this space there. Next, G, if we have them, would have to go first. So essentially, I guess we can say that G is effectively either going to go first or they're going to go out. We can leave another reminder here that G is going to be in one of those 2. Next, I is immediately after R if we have both of them. So we could symbolize this kind of as a conditional statement that if we have I and R, then we'll have to have kind of an RI block. But just to kind of simplify this, what I would do is just say something like, we'll have to have an RI block, but I'll put a question mark here kind of as a if we have them both. So if we don't have them both, obviously this rule doesn't apply. But if we do have them both, then we'll have to have them both there. Next, the same thing will apply to, looks like R and O. So O has to go right after R if we have them both. So we have this RO block, except arguably these 2 blocks would be inconsistent with each other, wouldn't they? So we couldn't really ever have all 3 of these guys in, because if we have RO and I, then something's going to have to give. You're not going to be able to have both an RI and an RO block. So that's kind of nice. That means that one of these 3 would have to be out. And it could be any of them, right? Because if one of O or I is out, then you could have R with whoever. Or if R is out, then I and O can do whatever they want. So yeah, as long as one of those 3 guys are out, then this is still okay. Next, T has to go right after N if we have them both. So essentially the same thing applies to N and T. So if we have them both, then they'll have to go in that sequence. Except wait, we know that one of N or T is going to have to go 5th, aren't they? So if that's true, then essentially if we have them both, the only place they could go is really 4 and 5. Or alternatively, one of them will have to be out, and really just one of them, because the other one obviously has to go 5th. So I suppose what we could do is we could exhaust this based on that, because really there's only 2 major plays. Either we're going to have N and T in 4 and 5, or they're just going to split between in and out. So what we could do is either they're going to go in that sequence, or actually we could even just further exhaust. We can say either we're going to have NT or we're going to have TN on in and out. Now, from there, is there anything else that we can figure out? I suppose we still have to have, actually, yeah, we still have to have one of RI or O on the outside, and that's significant in these 2 templates because it would lock out the outside completely. So that's kind of nice. And now that means that G has to go in, because in those templates, G cannot be out. So G would go into the first position over here. Anything else we can do here? I suppose in the top template, we can still say that one of R, O, or I has to be out, but that's less significant just because there's still a little bit of flexibility there. L still has to go into 2 or 3. So you know what, this looks like as far as we can take it. Let's take a look at the questions themselves. So the first question we have is our standard exclusion question, and as usual, we do this by the rules. So the first rule tells us that L has to go second or third. That essentially would get rid of answer choice C, where L is 4th. Next, we are told that the last position is supposed to be either N or T, and that looks okay on all of them. Next, G is supposed to be first or out, so that would get rid of answer choice D because G can't go second. Next, if we have R and I, then they have to go in that sequence. Now, between the remaining answers, answer choice B looks like it would violate that since it has them out of order. We can't have IR, it's supposed to be RI. And next, R and O, same thing applies there. And between answer choices A and E, E looks like it violates that one since we have OR and we can't do that. So the best answer to question number 6 is A. And I guess as usual, let's just plug that into the board. So we have G, L, I, N, T. And I suppose that leaves us with O and R out. Next. Question number, so 7 is global. Let's come back to this one in a moment. Let's take a look at question number 8. If I goes fourth, then if I goes fourth, what does that tell us? I mean, looking at our templates, that does mean that we're essentially locked into one of these two scenarios, right? It would be that it's the N or T in and out. And I suppose it doesn't really tell us too much more than that. It's kind of a dead end in both of these situations. R could still be in, but it doesn't have to be. So we have a little bit of flexibility. You know what? Maybe that's enough information. The question asks what must be true. And the one thing that we do know is that G is first, and conveniently, that's an answer. So the best answer choice to question number 8 is A. Next, question number 9. If G is first and O is second. So, in terms of our templates, that's actually consistent with all of them, right? In all of these, we could have G first and O second. So you know what? Let's play this out. If we have G in 1 and O in 2, what does that tell us? Well, first of all, we know that L is supposed to be 2 or 3, so L gets forced into 3. Oh, and we can't really do an RO block anymore, so that would force R to be out. So that's pretty good. Now at this stage, N and T, they're still a little bit flexible. And yeah, there's not much more we can do. Let's see what we can do. The question asks, each of the following could be true except A, I goes fourth, and maybe I is a little bit flexible right now. Answer choice B, R goes fourth. And no, that definitely can't happen because R is currently out. So that cannot be true. The best answer to number 9 is B. For the record, since we're here, let's take a quick look at the other answer choices. N is last. And sure, I mean, we could maybe put N over here and then T would have to be out, but that's still okay. Answer choice D, T goes last. Same deal. You could put T here and then you could either have N over here with an NT block, or you could even kick N out. So that would have been fine. E, both N and T are in, and yeah, we did just say we could have N and T in 4 and 5. So best answer once again is B. Next, question number 10 looks like a modifier, so we'll come back to this one in a moment. Let's take a look back to question number 7. Which of the following is a complete and accurate list of the applicants that must be in? Well, I guess a good place to start is we know that L definitely has to be in, so they have to be part of our list. That would easily get rid of answer choices A and B where we're missing an L. Now, between answer choices C, D, and E, I guess the question is, we definitely know that L is part of our list, but what about what looks like G and T? Now, in the last template, or in the last scenario, we easily said that we could have had T on the outside. In fact, that would be consistent with this template, where T could have been out. So that would get rid of answer choice E. There's no reason that T must have been in. It could have been out. And that just leaves us with G. Does G have to be in? Well, I mean, in these two templates, obviously it does. But what about the top template? Could we have a G on the outside? And I don't think there's any reason that we couldn't. So for example, as long as we have one of these blocks in, this might be okay. So if we put G over here out, and then we did something like R, O, and then L would go third, this doesn't really break anything. So this seems entirely okay. So G doesn't have to be in. That leaves us with C as the best answer choice. The only person that must be in was L. And lastly, question number 10. Suppose we swap out the rule that N or T is last with a rule that says that neither of them is last. So that completely changes everything. Our exhaustions are kind of useless now. And instead of this, that one of N or T has to be last, now we know that neither of them could be last. So what does that tell us? Actually, I guess it does raise the question of who could go last, because, I mean, N and T obviously can't, but neither can L or G. They would never go last either, right? So if N can't go last, T can't go last, and then L and G cannot go last, that really just leaves us with R, O, or I, and they have this whole kind of thing going on over here. Can we do anything with that? I mean, we know that one of them will have to be in the 5th position. But I suppose it could still be any of them, right? Because if you put an R there, then we could kick out both O and I, and that could be okay. Or if you put one of them there, then R could go right before. This feels flexible. Let's take a look at the question. The question asks, if everything else remains, which of the following must be true if R is last? Well, that's a pain in the ass. So we have a further restriction here. In fact, the idea that N and T are not last is kind of useless because they outright tell us that R now would have to be in the last position. And if that's true, then I guess obviously we know that I and O, these guys would have to be out. And from there, G now has to go first for sure. And we have to have N and T both in, and they're going to have to go in that order. So since L is in 2 or 3, L can't split them up. So L is going to have to be 2. And then N and T are going to go into 3 and 4. So that's pretty good. The question asks, which of the following, what did we say, must be true? Answer choice A, exactly one of I and O is in. No, they're currently both going to have to be out. Next, exactly one of N and T is in. Well, no, they're both in. It's not just one. Next, I is 4th. Nope, that's not true. N is 2nd. That's also not true. T is 4th. There it is. T would have to be 4th. The best answer to question number 10 is E.